see we have some folks joining us, so we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. All right, if you're just joining the room, just to let you all know, we're going to wait just a couple of minutes and let everyone who signed up for our webinar today jump in and make sure that everyone's on the call before we jump into our content. Okay, we will go ahead and start. My name is Teresa Somerville, and I am with Dude Solutions, and Braden Witt and Kyle Adamo are both here with us today as well. They're the product manager and product director for BioMed for TheWorxHub. If you have not heard of TheWorxHub before, it is a CMMS that we use to be able to support hospital systems and across healthcare to really just support facility directors and many others to be able to manage their assets and facilities. So as we get started today, we are so excited that you are here. I just want to cover off on a couple of logistics. If you have questions along the way, there is a Q&A feature. It should be at the bottom of your screen, hopefully. So if you will, just add your questions in those, and we'll have time at the very end for Q&A. And then additionally, we're going to have a couple of polls throughout, so we'll present those whenever those are ready, and if you're able to just respond to those, that would be great. So thank you again for joining us. We're really excited to have you here, and we hope you enjoy this presentation.
I guess it's our turn.
Yeah, this is where we jump in. So my Zoom's telling me my internet connection's unstable, Braden. So if you hear me drop off, the kids are downstairs. Everyone, it's tablet time while Dad does the webinar. So of course they're on the internet. So we'll try and keep this going. So I'm Kyle Adamo. I'm product manager for TheWorxHub. I've been doing this for 20 years to some extent. Braden, maybe give yourself a little intro.
I'm Braden Witt. I also am a product manager here for TheWorxHub, and I came to Dude from working in healthcare. So bring that expertise of what it takes for a day-to-day life to keep healthcare moving in good times and bad.
Mm-hmm. So things that we're going to be covering today, I just want to give an intro to who Dude Solutions is. For those of you who are new to the Dude, that's right, we call ourselves the Dude internally. We're going to talk a bit about the current state of BioMed as we see it after spending a lot of time with our customers and digging into the problems that they're looking to solve. We're going to talk about how we got to here, how we got to the BioMed application that you're going to be seeing now. Of course, we're going to get into software. We're going to leave PowerPoint behind. Everyone can cheer. And we're going to go into actual software and look at some key features in that. We'll talk about the Dude as a partner and sort of why we fit as a good solution for your clinical engineering. And we'll do a QA, of course. So in the Zoom application, there's a Q&A function where you can put your questions in there, right? And some people use the chat function too. I think that also works. But Q&A is probably the best. And you can put your questions in there. We're going to leave a chunk of time at the end to go through these questions and respond as best we can. So let me give you a bit of background about Dude Solutions. We have over 12,000 customers on our suite of applications that we've got running out there. We've been doing this a long time, 20 plus years, dedicated to sort of the work and asset management sphere. So the Dude's been around for 20 years. Back in 2010, we rolled out an application called TheWorxHub. And TheWorxHub was a specific application targeted for the needs of the healthcare industry. It's hard to take an existing app designed for multiple industries and make it work for healthcare. Healthcare is so unique in their needs. That's where the TheWorxHub came from. So it was a specific asset designed for healthcare. It could have its own roadmap, its own development. We've got about 1,600 clients on that. 64 million work orders are being tracked in this system. Over 1 million assets and 375,000 users on the TheWorxHub. So it's been going a long time. It's still growing. And this is the system where we've added our BioMed application to it. So that gives you a bit of background on the dude, our longevity in the industry, and what we're doing with the TheWorxHub, which you'll see today. I wanted to throw it over to Braden a bit to go through when we worked with clients over the last few years, sort of how they articulated their problems to us and how they were struggling with various areas of clinical engineering. So take it away, Braden.
Yeah. So when you start talking to people, and we've talked to a lot of clients, and when I used to be a client, I know the conversation always centered around, yeah, I have something to manage my BioMed assets in. I got it from my facilities guy, or I've been using it for 20 years. So a lot of legacy systems, a lot of built-in baggage, hasn't really caught up with technology, hasn't stayed current as batteries become bigger and bigger things in the industry, as they become harder to manage, as manufacturers decide that it'd be a great idea to do a PM on a battery. Systems haven't caught up. So that's kind of where we started with was, what are the core problems that we need to solve that maybe no one's thinking of, and maybe that even biomed techs don't need know that they need solved, and how can we jump in there? And then the other thing was being able to find your equipment, knowing where it's at, having different ways to be able to find those, especially for those places that if you don't have RTLS and it's kind of a pipe dream, but you still want to be able to maybe see stuff on a map, or you just need to be able to have a fast, reliable search to find your stuff. And that's a core part of the TheWorxHub as a whole, but especially when we start getting into asset searching the TheWorxHub and making it with like a few keywords anyone can find a BioMed device. And it's nice having me on the team because I'm a horrible speller. So it's been great to have a product where no matter how you spell pulse oximeter, you can find the pulse ox. And then managing compliance. A system has Joint Commission baked into it. We know the challenges of Joint Commission. We have a lot of great success every year with clients going through Joint Commission, having good results using the TheWorxHub. And BioMed, we've taken it to a step further. So if you've got your sterilizer in the system, as we'll see later, we've baked in reports, we've baked in pop-ups to make it easier and easier to have a successful BioMed program. And the next thing is simplifying your day-to-day life. The TheWorxHub is delivered to the cloud, to any device. So if you want to be a mobile facility, no matter what tablet, what phone, what platform, what computer, what laptop, you can get the TheWorxHub there. As long as you have an internet browser and a somewhat stable internet connection, you can have TheWorxHub. Another great thing is many of you probably have been working from other places other than your office within the hospital. There's no complicated VPNs or extra steps to be able to get into TheWorxHub and work. So if you suddenly have needed to work remotely and you didn't maybe have the laptop from work and you just need to get something done, you can hop on your phone, you can hop on someone else's computer if you know your URL. As we talked about already a little bit about searching assets quickly and efficiently. Fast, forgiving search is the core of what we've done with this. Reports. Sometimes you just don't want to have to build a big custom fancy report just to know if your PMs are complete. You want to click 2 buttons and you want to be done with compliance. And that's how we've thought about reporting in the TheWorxHub. I'm back. That was weird.
That could have been me. I disconnected for a second. Okay.
I think it was the VPN. I'm going to disconnect my VPN real fast. There we go. All right. There we are. Back to this. All right. Connecting across facilities and departments. So one of the great things about the TheWorxHub is sometimes it takes a lot of departments to get a project done. And the TheWorxHub is here in that moment. So if you're doing a big install and you've got facilities involved, you need housekeeping involved, and you need housekeeping involved and contractors and all those many layers, the TheWorxHub gives you a product management tool that doesn't need Gantt charts. It's real time, price tracking, and some really powerful features there. And then keeping a pulse on your department. We hear this time and time again. I just want to know where my technicians are, what they're doing, and what they have coming up. So we built a great feature around making it super easy to have one glance of what's going on in your department. We have departments that put it up on a big monitor in their shop. So as people walk in the door, they can see how behind they are on PM, see that high risk equipment that might have a work order that needs to get done right away, and then mobile. Our mobile app is fantastic. You don't have to go to your IT department and get more approvals because it's baked into your web address. No extra apps to download. If you're an existing client, you're probably familiar with Pick to Shop. We've started phasing Pick to Shop out now with in-app barcode scanning, faster, more reliable, and better results. And it gives you that power to leverage things that are already barcoded and work with existing barcodes in your facility.
So before we jump into software demo, I just want to talk a bit about the journey we've been on to get here. For the longest time, we were working with our healthcare clients on facilities management side of things. And often we'd get the director of clinical engineering or the BioMed counterpart looking over their shoulder saying, I kind of want to use this system instead. And a lot of them did. They would use it, but it just didn't have all the things that were needed for the day in the life of a BioMed technician. So we've been working on a lot of those things and spending a couple of years on discovery and working with clients through what their problems are to get it developed so that it satisfied those needs. And it'll continue to grow. We're constantly evolving. Because we're in the cloud, we manage all the things for you, all of your infrastructure, all your data backups, all of your security, penetration testing, performance testing, availability, meaning it's available in multiple regions if there's an outage. We handle all of that stuff, which means as far as a development standpoint, we can release fixes easily. We can release new features continually. So we're constantly evolving the system based on user feedback. So how we got to here, there's a bunch of circles on screen. The blue ones are the things we're going to focus on today. The ones in red are stuff that we're working with clients on, sort of the next version of BioMed. What are the next steps? So the stuff in blue, as we dealt with clients, this particular big one called consistent taxonomy, this is fancy words to say, how are you categorizing your equipment to make things easy and consistent and reliable as far as your equipment data? Because that was one of the big problems that we encountered is we'd see exports of their data and it wasn't consistent. Clinicians will get frustrated trying to find data assets when they needed to submit a request because nothing was categorized the same way, named the same way. We wanted to come up with a great way to sort of manage consistency across the data so it was reliable and complete and thorough. One of the other issues was files. How do I find files? These are your manuals, your instructions for use, and so on. All of those things are sort of baked into our system on how you can access files. Finding data, this was another challenge that people had, mostly around assets. So how do I find that equipment that I want to link to a work order or a request? A lot of times it was many steps, waiting 30 seconds or so, putting in wildcards like star.star to find your records. We've built a great search tool to allow you to get access to your data pretty quickly. Compliance, of course, Braden touched on this, making sure all that stuff is baked in. If you're under the Joint Commission, we've got all those standards in there to allow you to report on them. Connectivity data, so when it came to my equipment, how do I track those bits of data that are related to IT? What are the IP addresses? What are the MAC addresses? What gateways? What port are they plugged in? What wall jack? All this sort of stuff that people were trying to track to help their IT team support these devices when it mattered. Battery management emerged sort of later on in our discovery as a really big problem that we were sort of blindsided by, but we built some great tools in our system to help you manage the batteries that are like a subcomponent of your equipment. That turned into a pretty big discovery as we went through, and people were trying all sorts of creative and innovative ways in their existing systems to manage batteries. So we spent a ton of time on that, making sure we got it right. Downtime reporting, of course, this is important. Flexible risk assessments. This was something that was pretty important to us. How do we risk assess our assets? How do we assign risk to them? And how do we do it in a method that's different than my facilities counterpart? Like if you're both using the system, you kind of want to silo your data off. Here's my BioMed data. Here's my facilities data. Here's how we do risk. You can do your own risk over there. And then again, control over models. This was like all the models that I'm bringing into my organization, different equipment models. I want control over those. That'll lead to better consistency in asset data. I don't want a free-for-all of 5 different types of infusion pumps. I want some consistency over those so I can simplify my maintenance operation that's already pretty complex. All the stuff in red is we're working with customers now to get through these issues, these items that some customers want. So we're moving forward with things around integrating with third-party sources of files like OneSource. We're looking into RTLS, so tracking your equipment in real time, those things that move around. Methods around managing recalls in a more automated way through systems like ECRI or other ones like that. RFID has come up a lot, and integrating with different med testers and diagnostic feeds is also an issue that we're looking into as well. So I think what we're going to do is jump into software now, and we're going to jump directly into something that we're calling the new model evaluation to take us through the idea of control over models, consistent and thorough asset data that's predictable and reliable. But before we jump into that, through Zoom that we're connected on, we have a way of doing polls, and Teresa's going to turn on a poll that's about your equipment inventory and what you think, how you would rate the reliability of that inventory. So if you look on your screen, you'll see some options here as far as how would you rate the quality, consistency of your equipment inventory data. Is it perfect? Is it good, mediocre, poor, or what equipment inventory data? We've seen a mix of people coming from everywhere, right? We'll typically see a polarizing view of people's equipment data. Oftentimes when people are looking to switch to different systems, it's because their data is not reliable, and they're taking this as a chance to sort of clean all that up. So we'll give you a chance.
No judgment to that person that's got the what inventory data. You know, no judgment from us. We're here to help you understand that inventory and grow it.
We've seen it all, and oftentimes in healthcare, we're seeing data that can be 20 years old, right? And it's been migrated through many different systems, through staff turnover, many different leaders, different policies and procedures, and the data comes into a state where it's sort of Franken data and nobody knows the origin, or but that's usually step one of implementation, is to put a really good set of eyeballs on that and make sure we've got a consistent, reliable set of data that we're bringing forward. So when we look at the results, this is kind of typical from what we've seen in some other surveys. Some people think their data is poor. Some people think it's good. Nobody ever thinks it's perfect. And there's a bunch of people in there that know it's mediocre. Like it's we're doing the work, but we have suspicion that we're missing some stuff, and it's causing pain and burden at some points in the life cycle. So thanks for participating in that. We're going to have a couple more polls like this just to keep you on your toes as we jump into software. So give me a second. I am going to pause my screen, and then I'm going to open up some software. We're going to do
always the dangerous transition in the webinar.
All right. You see my browser now? Am I showing the right thing?
We are. We're in that.
Okay.
We're in the asset model dashboard.
Okay. So coming back to the topic of asset consistency and control over models, one of the things that we built to sort of streamline this process is a bit more rigidity and structure around how you bring new equipment models into your organization, the workflows they go through before they land on the floor, and how you can build sort of templates of equipment. So the idea is that you create a model, and then anytime you're bringing a new one of those instance of that model and putting it on the floor, maybe it's a new infusion pump or another infusion pump, you just add a new asset from that model, and everything gets copied over. That could be files, risk, all the nameplate data, that sort of stuff. So let me jump into one here. Let's do, I always look at the sterilizer, for example, and show you a bit about what this looks like. So I've got a steam sterilizer. I can open that up, and this is from Getinge, and it's got, here's my model number, my basic nameplate data. Does this have clinical alarms? Does it contain PHI? Does it require a manual time change? Some basic info about this thing. I can also add PM templates. So for this model, what type of PM goes with it? And you can set up templates and pre-link those to the model. So anytime you add a new sterilizer of this make and model, all the stuff comes with it. You don't have to rethink the PMs. Same with batteries. Does this have batteries that come with it? You can preset those on the model level. You can preset a risk assessment on it, meaning every time I bring in a new sterilizer, we already know what the risk is with this. It comes with it. It sort of trickles down to the equipment. Safety notes, of course, you can add those label instructions. So everyone's got different types of labels that they put on their equipment. We can predefine what those labels look like so that when this asset comes on board, we know what sort of labels we should be looking at.
And this is a great spot as you look at your labels here. We notice every year when you put a new PM sticker on and your colors change over the year, as we update stuff here, we're working towards where it'll flow down. So we'll be able to change that label up at the model level, that it'll flow down to all the assets. So that makes it a little easier as you're doing spot checks for everyone to know exactly which label should be on for that year's PM, or which other myriad of stickers you decide you want to stick on your stuff.
And that's, you bring up a good point about the power of the model. So, you know, let's say you've got dozens and dozens of infusion pumps. Maybe they've issued a new update to the BIOS or something like that. There's a slightly new manual that goes with it, or a revised manual that goes with it. You just upload it, change the manual on the model, automatically updated on all those devices. AEM, of course, you can track this here as well, whether or not this is in your this model is part of an AEM program. And then attachments. So these are your third-party files. These are all your manuals, instructions for use, safety instructions, anything that goes with it. Could be, you know, the brochure that lets you know about the features and functions, anything you could think of. But typically, this will be manuals, which brings me to another topic while we're here. Files. Files are a huge part of BioMed. This was addressed early on in our discovery. People were always looking to find files. We've got a poll. Teresa's going to launch another poll about how and where you're storing all of these different external documents, whether they be manuals or instructions for use. How are you storing and organizing them? We've seen all sorts of methods. It's the Wild West over here, of course. That's it. Sometimes I feel like it's like that at home. Network share, we see that quite a bit. Paper files, we still see that quite a bit. OneDrive is sort of emerging. OneSource that we talked about earlier, which is a third-party application that has these. Some people have them in Dropbox. You can have all these things. I would just consider, if you have many of those things, it's the Wild West for sure.
I'll share a funny story here while everyone does this poll. A couple of years ago, sitting at the facility I used to work at, and we're in the room of doing document review, and there's a text message string that starts of all these different phones going off. I'm like, where's the manual? Where's the manual? And there's this moment with Joint Commission Server, we just need the manual. And there was like this fight over like me being the person, like we need him here, we need him there. And it would have been so nice to be able to just send out a link and be like, here is your link to the hydrostat instruction manual. So this is a great place that no matter how many times a manager might turn over in a department, they don't have control. I love, this is one of my favorite features in the WorxHub is the file library, of being able to track all this stuff.
Okay, and we'll jump into some more of the file functionality as well. Yeah, this is the way these poll results show. This is pretty much on par with our experience historically. It's a bit of the Wild West for some people, meaning they've got a lot of different methods. Usually, you know, they might have the files, but like Braden's story just illustrated, nobody knows where they might be. Network share is common. Paper files is actually pretty common too. We want to make sure so that you can access these files on desktop, mobile, anywhere, anytime. We really want to get those into the system in sort of digitized way. We're working on, so we've got a file library built into our system that's like a centralized repo of all of your files. It's heavily searchable. Of course, there's always new files that you're discovering and you want to upload. And that can be part of your whole new model process. So when you see the top of this dashboard, there's different widgets here that represent stages that a model can go through. There's a sort of a workflow that things go through where things, let's say you want to bring a new model into the organization, you start to capture it, it goes for approval, meaning it gets pushed to someone's dashboard where they review it, make sure it's thorough and you've captured all the things. They can send it back for revision, which means you'll get pinged to say, hey, I need a manual on this, you forgot to upload the manual. So let's say I've got this DaVinci system, it's missing a manual. I can come through here, I can go to attachments, add attachment. I can add files from various different places, upload from my computer. Maybe it's a URL to, maybe it's a YouTube video of a teardown I want to link. Maybe it's from Dropbox or from the library, from the WorxHub library, because we know it's already up there. I'm just going to say, I'm going to upload a new file. And I'll upload the DaVinci file. And this adds it to the library. So the next time, if I need that for any other reason, it's there. There's a URL that you can share. That file is there forever until you want to take it down. Okay, so now that I've done the stuff that I need to do, I can submit this. I can put in notes about I fixed the missing file, and this will go back to whoever's in charge of approving models. So that one that was awaiting revision is now gone, and there's one that's pending approval. So now it's through permissions and roles, we can change who has access to these different options up here. And someone who's got pending approval would then see, okay, this one is now got the file. Let me review it again, and then we'll approve it, which means time to go. We can put it on the floor, start using it. Okay, so the new model evaluation brings all of that rigor, consistency to your data, and it makes sure that the next step, which is allowing, say, clinicians or any other users of your system, it makes it easy to find easy to find data because everything's consistent. So I'm going to jump into the request experience. So I'm logged in as a requester. So a requester in our system, much like most systems, is like a limited role, and essentially all they can do is request corrective work. Something's broke, there's a breakdown or a malfunction, they need to submit a request. And depending on what you're running in the WorxHub, this could be a request into multiple different departments. It could be a maintenance request, it could be a BioMed request, EVS or housekeeping requests, and so on. So we can set up these different silos for data to go into, but a unified requester experience. So when I log in as a requester, you can see recent requests that I've submitted, so I can check on the status of these just by looking at them. I can see this one's in progress, this one's still a request. If I want to submit a BioMed request, it's very straightforward. I click on my request button, and in this search field is where the magic happens. So if I want to type in sterilizer, oops. Oh, I can't spell. Here we go. I can see my main sterilizer here. I can see, so it does a search across a lot of different criteria where I can find my sterilizer. I can find things that are in the sterile processing department. If I just typed in sterile, it's also going to find assets that are in that room. So it searches through a lot of different criteria, and you can mix and match terms here to narrow your list. But it's very, very fast. Even if you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of assets, it's going to come through very fast, and you'll be able to find the things you're looking for. As soon as I click on my sterilizer, a couple things happen. It shows me all the recent activity for that asset. Well, not all, the most recent 5. So you'll get a sense of, is the thing I'm about to request a duplicate? Did someone else already capture it? You'll see it there in that little widget on the right. And you can see some of the history right away on the side.
This is a great feature here for like a department manager who just wants to check on a thing in their department to see where it's at. It saves a few phone calls to that dispatcher for a unit coordinator. So we've seen a lot of success with this of being an information source as well, not just a request form for everyone within a department.
Mm-hmm. And you can as a user, you'll get notified of email or notified via email of updates that happen on this. You can use a function called notify others, where if there's other people within a unit or within your organization that you want to make sure get email notifications on this thing, maybe there's a recent history of issues with that, you just want to make sure people passive aggressively nag people by putting them on an email notification, you can do that too. And if there's a photo, maybe there's damage to the thing, or there's an error code on screen, and you want to capture a picture of it for the technician, you can upload a photo as well on the fly. Adding a request is really straightforward. And again, you get all that recent history, and it's sort of a one and done. 2 seconds, you add your thing, you hit submit, you'll get notified of updates. Next time you log into the system as well, you'll see your recent history of items that are in there. And all of the ability to search effectively comes through that whole model evaluation, having consistent data from the get-go.
And with our single sign-on, it makes it super fantastic to be able to roll out to all your clinicians. As more and more clinicians are rolling around the hospital with a laptop and a barcode scanner, if you've got good barcoding on stuff, you can click in that search box, and a clinician can hit that barcode and have that confidence you are going to get the most high-quality requests that you didn't think you could ever get, to know exact failures, exact software codes, to help that technician get started on that work faster.
That's an interesting segue. Let's jump into barcode as a topic for a second. Yeah. Teresa, I think you have a poll for the people about whether or not the attendees on this call have barcodes on their equipment. And while that's happening, I'll get queued up to share my mobile device. We'll talk a bit about barcoding. So the TheWorxHub can support, we can generate our own barcodes out of the TheWorxHub, so you can generate them. You can print to different Avery templates. So Avery has these aluminum back durable heat resistant templates that are super cheap, work with any printer, so you can get started with barcoding for pennies a barcode. If things are already barcoded, which a lot of our clients do have that, 99% chance we'll support that barcode. It could be a QR, it could be a code 39, EAN, UPC, code 128, all these different flavors we can support. So you can bring your own barcodes, you can generate your own from ours. There's no limit really to what you can do with that.
One of the things we recommend as we wrap up this poll here is, if you're thinking, I really wish all my stuff was barcoded, one of the things that we recommend is, as you do your annual PM that first year after you've rolled out the TheWorxHub, as you do that first annual PM, just making that part of your PM process and rolling right through and barcoding as you're PMing, save a little time, utilize the staff to the maximum capacity.
Okay, I'm going to do a little barcoding here. Let me get my a barcode up on screen here for a second. So you guys should see my mobile device. Yep. It's always fun sharing your phone. So I'm going to jump over to the TheWorxHub. I've got it open on my phone here. So I'm logged in as a technician that's got access to various things. This particular user has access to both maintenance and BioMed. You can see these little tabs at the top. Okay, I can toggle between maintenance and BioMed. That won't be typical. I'm logged in, I guess, as a manager who has access to multiple things. But you can see this option on the dashboard called Scan Barcode. If I click on that, I point it at my barcode. Now it brings up that equipment, which is our favorite thing, the sterilizer. You can see we've been using this one for a lot of these demos because it's got a lot of open work orders on it, which hopefully isn't that typical. But you get access to the sterilizer. I can click through to see more info on that piece of equipment. I can add a new work order on the fly for that asset. Because we've scanned it, we know which asset it is. I can add a new work order, and I can see the open work orders on it. So maybe I know I have a job to do on that. I'm going to walk up to it, scan it, so I confirm I'm at the right place, the right piece of equipment, and then I can start a timer right away. See this pressure gauge one? I hit the little menu. We call them the hamburger menu, and I can say start timer, and I can go off and do my job, and we're tracking that time automatically for you. So when you mark it complete, we'll log that time, accumulate costs in the background, assign them to a budget code. All that stuff can happen automatically in our system. Okay, sometimes it's a PM and there's a more detailed task list. You would click through on that work order and go through the task list and step through all those tasks. We can do things like capture sort of pass-fail type task lists, checkbox type task lists, You could capture a reading and insert that into a task list. All different options for how you configure those task lists and procedures that can go with your PM. This happens to be a corrective, so I can just complete the job, and your manual, if there's a manual on this piece of equipment, it'll be on the work order as well. So I've clicked through into the work order. I see my safety note at the top about appropriate PPE. I can see more details about it. Okay, I can see all these other options, timers running, inventory. I can track costs. I can jump into my attachments and see those manuals. I can just open them up on my mobile device as well. Okay, so the mobile app sort of gives you that action in the field. We can also do push notifications to this. So if you want to get notified of a new assignment on your mobile device, if you want your device to vibrate, or you want to get a notification into your notification tray, you can do that as well on your device, and it'll push it right to your phone. Okay, and you can get notifications on your desktop, all those sorts of things through the app itself. And of course, there's email that goes with it if you want email notifications too. So the mobile is pretty heavily used on a daily basis. 60% of our users are in the mobile app, and those are the people getting the work done. So you have the option to run this on your phone, which is what I'm looking at now. This could be on a tablet. You can run the mobile app on a desktop. We don't really care. But a lot of people will also run the desktop version just on a laptop that's on a cart and go around and work that way. So there's a lot of different ways that you can work with the system. Complete my work order just like that. It'll log the time, mark it complete, and I'm done. Okay, let me jump back away from mobile. Hopefully that made some sense, what we went through there. I'm gonna stop my screen share here, and I'm gonna share my desktop again. So I want to jump into reporting a bit, because all of this stuff that you're doing as far as having consistent equipment naming conventions and categorization and sort of locking down your models, tracking time on mobile, making sure using barcodes to scan stuff to make sure you have the right equipment, all this leads to better reporting. And I want to jump into, before we get into sort of your traditional day-to-day reporting, I want to jump into more of a corporate reporting. So for any of you that are part of like a health system that have multiple sites that might be running the TheWorxHub, let me zoom in a bit here. We've got an analytics dashboard that can roll up data from all your different sites within the TheWorxHub into a unified place. So you can get benchmarks across your organization, benchmarks across all customers on the TheWorxHub. These can be you know, pie charts, trend charts, bar charts. There's like a library of widgets that you can add to your dashboard. I happen to be looking at one here that's called PM benchmarks, and each of these columns represent one of my hospitals or one of my sites, and I can see things like the number of PMs per 1,000 square feet. So I've set this up as a benchmark, so all of my sites are being compared across the same benchmark, and I can see how all customers in the TheWorxHub look. So how many PMs per 1,000 square feet across all TheWorxHub customers versus me. We can do this. This is set up for facilities, but if I flipped it to BioMed, it'd be per asset. So you can get all these benchmarks, and then you can see how your organization is doing, which is not very good in this sample data set. They're well below the industry benchmark or the customer benchmark. So you get to stay on top of all your different sites. This is especially great, especially during the implementation phase where new sites are coming on board. You need to monitor their traction and making sure they're adopting the system well. There's trend reporting that goes with it, different types of comparisons, completion by site. Everything on here is a drill down as well. So if I want to click on this particular one and see those work orders, if I want to export them, I can click through here to jump into those sites. So this product is called WorxIQ. It rolls up all of your data across your multiple sites, and it allows you to bake in all that consistency at the site level, at the corporate level, and those get pushed down to all your sites. So you define all your pick lists, all your templates, all your safety notes, all at this level. Then everyone's using the system consistently across the board. So reporting matters, consistency matters, and this is like the final straw. It rolls all the way up to the corporate level, and you get this insight into each of your sites.
One of the great features here is you're thinking about a system. If you're a regional or if you oversee 1 or 2 hospitals, you can build groups of hospitals. So you can dig into just your couple hospitals. If you have a region of hospitals that's really struggling with compliance, you can focus on those. If you've got a lot of standalone clinics, you can look at just your clinics, just your business occupancy. So some really great features as you start needing to dig into breaking things up across managements and departments as well.
And this is really the highest level of reporting at this sort of corporate level, but a lot of day-to-day reporting is just about a site. There's like a manager or a director at a site that just needs to, or a dispatcher, and they just need to see data for their site. So I'm going to jump back into an individual site. This happens to be a site called NightWit, and we're in our demo environment right now. I'm looking at a piece of equipment. This is my sterilizer again. This is the main asset form that goes with it. There's a lot of other info that goes with this, including what Joint Commission standards apply to this. This is where you can configure settings for this asset if it's distinct or unique from that model. You can review all of your different data on this asset here. One thing that's never part of a model that's worth talking about here. So the model is like the highest level template for an asset, but as I get these individual assets, there's certain things that are unique to that asset. Networking info is one of them. I just want to jump into this before we look at reporting again, because this ties into reporting. Networking info is all those different IT-related fields that let you identify and connect to a piece of equipment. Those could be MAC addresses, IP addresses. Maybe I want to add a new field for gateway. Okay, I can add these things as if there's new criteria that you want that you don't have in your system, we can add those in as well. So this is where you can track all those things. You can search and export this data. This is stuff that helps your IT department support this equipment.
Except for username and password. We don't recommend ever putting username and passwords. But one of the things we've got here, you'll see the little eyeball there. A nice little feature we baked into this is we know this can be sensitive. So if someone goes and makes all your IP addresses the same and you want to know who it was, it's an easy way to come back and see each of those interactions. Every time this panel is opened, we're logging that information. So it makes it really easy to audit who's hitting that network information, or if you're doing some spot check to see, oh, did IP addresses get updated as they should have? A great way to kind of spot check and manage who's hitting that data and what they're doing.
A battery is another area that you might come into the specific asset to change things. A battery can be defined at the model level, it flows through, but maybe you replace that data or you replace that battery. You can add a new battery to your system specific for this piece of equipment, and that battery can have its own PM schedule. That battery can have its own risk assessment. It becomes like a sub asset of this one. It can have its own life, but it's managed as part of this parent asset as well. And there's a whole set of battery reporting and searching that goes with it. So let me jump into some reporting because I want to make sure we get through that, and then we'll open up the floor for some Q&A. So let me go to my reporting tab, and I want to talk about, so you can go and configure all your reports and sort of finesse and play with filters and sorting and groupings and things like that. Once you do that, you can add stuff as a favorite, and a favorite is basically a report template that you just want to run over and over. You don't want to have to think about it. You just come here and click it. You can subscribe to it and get it emailed to you on a schedule. You can share it with other people within your organization. So in the end, you'll build reports out and create favorites from them so that you know these are the reports that I run on a weekly basis and there's single clicks to get to. We as a company also publish stuff into a library. And a library is like Dude Solutions sending templates to you, and you can say, that's a good template, let me adopt that. So we've got a couple in this sample data right now. So maybe I want to see this one, 020401 EP2 medical inventory. I want to add this report to my favorite list. I come in here, I say add to favorites. There it is. And it's forever in my account, linked to me. Anytime I come to this page, it's there. It's a single click to get to that report now. Okay, so let me zoom in a bit. Okay, this is grouped by location, it looks like. And this is all my different pieces of equipment that apply to that EP. Okay, any of these other ones, if I wanted to see my batteries that are in service and group them by my different models, I can run that report. Okay, so I can see my Baxter IQ Infusion, how many batteries I have, those that are risk assessed, the PMs. I can see all these different models, or all these different models that have batteries and how many batteries I have on site.
And a great feature here too is if you're on your environment of care committee, or you've got lots of people who need to know what's going on in BioMed, you can set up some great managed subscriptions here. So if you've got like a compliance issue, maybe in a department where PMs are low, you can manage that subscription and you can have that emailed out to your department managers so they can help be your ally in finding that cannot locate's a great one, where you can set up those subscriptions. You can do it by department. So your ER can get one, your OR can get one, so that those managers can help you find those missing assets and help drive that compliance number back up to 100%.
Yeah, so this is through the asset form. There's an asset has a status, and the status can be set to cannot locate. That allows us to generate reports, and like Braden said, you can subscribe to them. If you want to drill down on this report, you can do that too. I can click on the asset number here, and when I close back on this, it's loading a new tab for me. It'll take me right into that asset, and I can see details about it, try and go find it, and figure out the last time it was touched, the last work order that was on it, that sort of thing. So reporting across equipment, work orders, staff, locations, you name it, it's all baked in there, and we're always pushing new stuff out to this library for you to adopt, and there'll be notices that show up in your app to say, hey, there's a new report, this new use case we're solving with these reports, so we can push those through the library. Okay, so is there any other stuff that you want to touch on when it comes to reporting, Braden, or should we start to address some questions?
Let's get some questions. I've got one here, Kyle, that might be a good one because this is a new thing of someone on the line who's having some barcoding issues. Can you walk us through the different of how to go from pick to shop and set up our in-app camera scanning?
Yeah, so let me.
Or we can do it from your profile there and show them how to do it from their profiles on the desktop.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's a way. But let me do it the sort of traditional way that most people are doing it. So I'm going to share my screen again. You should see mobile now. So let's say you've got your technicians and they're using the TheWorxHub and they want to switch how they scan barcodes, the different methodologies that are available. In the action section where you see tap to scan, right to the right of it is this set preference. And when I click on that, there's a few options. Camera, which will sort of pass the feed of what your camera's seeing straight through to the app. You can use that to scan the barcode. This is the preferred model, or the preferred method. It's easiest, fastest, everything. Not every device will support this. Maybe you don't have a rear camera because you cheaped out when buying your device. You only got the front camera. You only got the front camera so you can do selfies. You can use an app called Pick to Shop. There's a third-party app you go and download from the App Store or Google Play. Essentially, when you scan a barcode, it calls that app. That app uses the camera, passes it back to the TheWorxHub. It's a couple of extra jumping hoops, but it allows us to support barcoding on older devices. Bluetooth is a different option where you can get a peripheral that plugs into your, sometimes it's Bluetooth, sometimes it plugs directly into your ports on your device. And that's sort of the handheld one where you point and scan. Some people have those hooked up. They usually have a bigger range. You can scan from 10 feet away, 20 feet away, depending on how powerful it is. Those Bluetooth scanners are an option too. That allows you to leverage those if you want to carry yet another thing around with you. You can carry the Bluetooth scanner. Some of our clients do it, some don't. I recommend the camera if it works for you. If it doesn't, let's look at these other options. That's one way to do it. Probably the easiest way, because a logged in user is changing that setting for themselves. Let me stop this, and I'm going to go back to within the TheWorxHub, the desktop app. If you're using that, you can click on your name in the top right, go to profile, and that same setting is also in your profile. Barcode scanning preference, you can set it here. So if you want to do it on behalf of a coworker, you can go find their form and do it for them as well, or you can do it here. If as a logged in user, you can come here and do it. Okay. So there's a couple ways to manage that, but I think the mobile way is the best.
Awesome. And then the next one, Kyle, we got here. We got a question about on permissions. And when it comes to new model evaluation of, can anyone approve a model, or is it, what does it look like? How do we set up those user permissions for a new model?
That is a good question. So under the security tab of the TheWorxHub, this can be defined at the corporate health system level or at the individual site level, depending on how your organization is structured. So through asset models, you can generate a specific role, perhaps, that's designated for this. This could be your BioMed admin, let's say. And in the BioMed admin role, this is a role that I created, you can define what you can do with models. So obviously not everyone's going to have access to manipulate roles. It's going to be some sort of sysadmin who administers roles. Then you can assign people to those roles. Whoever within your organization needs to be able to approve things. And you can step them through. Maybe they need to see models, but they can't touch. You give them a view-only access. Maybe they can see models and only add. Maybe they can approve. Maybe they can update. Maybe they can reject. So there's different workflows that you're allowed to permit people to do. And as we get sort of more use cases out there on how people are using the new model evaluation, you might see more evolve into more permissions. But for now, we're starting simple. We can restrict it so not everyone can get access to it. And we know that you just don't want it to turn into another kind of free-for-all where everyone's approving everything. You're going to have a small subset of people that are approving stuff. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yep, sounded good. Any other questions we have? We've kind of cleared up the list here to see if we got any other questions, any other features maybe you didn't see that you'd like to see while we're here. Show off a couple more things while we're floating around the hub.
One of the other ones that I think I can raise when that came out of one of the last ones that we're on was about data. If you have equipment data, can we migrate it forward? The answer is yes. We have tools and capabilities, and obviously we're migrating data all the time when it comes to TheWorxHub. So if you're leaving your existing system and you've got a Excel export or CSV export, we can work with you to get that migrated over to our system. Usually we take that time, this moment, to really do a good assessment of that data to make sure, is it thorough, are there things we're missing? These things that you couldn't locate for the last 2 years, should we just call it a day and maybe assume that you don't have them and not migrate them forward? There's a review that happens where we do a real good gut check on this data to figure out what's valuable and not, because nobody really wants to take data that they have no confidence in and move it to another system. This is the time to really think about what we need to carry forward. So your assets and PMs and other things can be moved forward.
That's another thing that as you think about, as you're looking at the TheWorxHub and you're thinking about, like, process in your hospital, one thing we encourage people to is, as you start a process with like our implementation team, is having your medical equipment management plan out ready and front and center. And as you start implementing the software, kind of working through EP by EP, section by section, to make sure you're baking the software into your management plan, to make sure that every person who comes or goes, and if you leave that legacy document, that everyone knows the process to follow within the TheWorxHub. We talk to clients all the time who inherit the TheWorxHub from the person before them, and I don't know why this decision was made. And so leaving those kinds of, those bits of documentation are really great ways. Another really fantastic thing that we've started seeing more and more people using the new file library for is storing all of your equipment management plans in the file library. So your fire, maintenance, security, utilities, medical equipment, storing all that kind of stuff here in the TheWorxHub guarantees that users will know how to get it. Your EOC committees can get to it either. You can build up roles and permissions so everyone knows where to go find that source document, so you're not having to keep tracking that thing down.
Yeah, the file library is basically a central repo of all of the files that you've uploaded to the system. These could be PDF files, these can be image files, and you can download them. You can easily search for them. So if you want to find, let's say, manuals, you can quickly search for those. It's a great tool for getting access to files very quickly, and you can upload new files directly to it. So any of those documentation that might not be related to an individual asset or an individual work order, but it's more generic about policies and procedures, you come into the file library and you upload them from here. Okay, and then
with URL, something we've started seeing is people like linking a YouTube video Or there's sites out there like iFixit and other places that might have like a breakdown or a repair video. When you add that file, you can add a link to anywhere on the internet, so you can drive back if there's a really specific way you want something done. We've seen places build like their own like private YouTube channel and then linking those videos there. So when you see your URL there, it can go absolutely anywhere. Got another question here, Kyle, for us. Our iSight BioMed vendor uses their own software database to manage our assets. Could you grab our data from there?
Most likely we could. We need to dig in a bit more into who the vendor is and what sort of capabilities. Like, is it a continual integration? Is it a one-time sync? There's a lot of different options that we have to get your data over. Initially, most of the time it's about extracting into a CSV and then we can import it. If it's more of an integration that we need to do back and forth, we have API endpoints and integrations that we do. So we'd have to look at who they are and what capabilities they have and exactly what the use case is and how current data needs to be. And we could talk through those things. But it's another thing we never really get into in these types of things is behind the scenes is APIs. That means you can programmatically connect different systems to it. That doesn't mean it's just like this and you just click a button and you're there. Usually we need to discuss what you're trying to get out of it to make sure it's going to work for you, and we work with the partner vendors to hook it all up and all that stuff. But there are capabilities to integrate and transfer data from those other systems as well.
Yeah, and we can also help, with clients as you're working through our process, helping you form those conversations, figure out maybe you want to work your vendor a little different way. We're seeing more and more vendors working more and more out of the TheWorxHub. And really being that because you get that request form, so you know what's going on in your facility. And we know that's a big challenge sometimes with third-party vendors of being able to do that real-time reporting, instant location. So something that our solutions consultants and our implementation team can help you with there.
Anything else come in, Braden, or I think we're good?
Clears up the list here right at the top of the hour too. That's a good time. We're getting really good at this.
I know, I know.
Any other last questions, comments? Say reach out if you're a current client who's running one of our other apps. Say reach out to your sales rep, or if you're in the process of implementation, reach out to your implementation specialist. And we'll bring Teresa in here now. Let her have the closing words since she kind of put this all together today. And thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Kyle and Braden, for sharing about this. And yeah, just wanted to wrap and say thank you all for attending. If you have any questions or would like more information, please feel free to reach out. And again, thank you for your time. We're so excited to be able to share this and just continue to work with you. So thank you all.